Greetings and salutations, students of Greek. We continue our study of N. Clayton Croy's Primer of Biblical Greek by turning to Lesson 5, where we're introduced to the definite article, as well as second and first declension adjectives. So Croy begins with adjectives. I want us to turn first to the definite article. What is the definite article? The definite article marks a noun as specific or unique. So in the case of 1 Corinthians 15:1, I make known to you, brothers, the gospel. Gnorizo de humin adelphoi ta euangelion. So this gospel, there are many gospels potentially, and in fact, most of the time in the ancient world, when we see the word euangelion, gospel, it is in the plural and references good news messages in political context. But Paul is talking about a specific gospel, a unique gospel, ta euangelion, the gospel, the one that he proclaimed to the Corinthians. So we have that definite article marker, both in English and in Greek. It is really worthwhile to memorize the definite article because it provides a lot of grammatical information that will help you read the New Testament, understand what's going on. The definite article, and this is really important, will always mirror the noun, adjective, or participle, that it defines in case, number, and gender. So what will happen is the definite article will be attached to a noun, to an adjective, or to a participle, and whatever noun, adjective, or participle the definite article is modifying or is attached to, it will match in case, number, and gender. So if you have a feminine singular nominative definite article, it's always going to have hey attached to that nominative singular feminine noun or participle or adjective. Now, we're not going to meet participles for a while, but for now we have met nouns and adjectives. So look over this list of definite articles, and it's honestly worth memorizing these. They'll be useful for a variety of things. So I'm going to read through them just so that you know what they are, and point out some patterns for you to observe. So first, starting in the masculine definite articles, I'm going to go all the way through singular and plurals, from the nominative through the accusative singular and plural. So the masculine singular, ha, tu, to, ton, hoi, ton, tois, tous. That's the masculine definite articles from the nominative to the accusative in the singular and the plural. Now for the feminine definite articles from the nominative to the accusative, first singular, then plural. He, tes, te, tain, hi, ton, tais, tas. Going now to the neuter. Ta, tu, to, ta, ton, tois, ta. Couple of things to notice right off of the bat. The dative is always going to have that iota subscript, right? So you can see in to, te, and to, you have that iota subscript. The genitive is going to have that lengthened u in the masculine and neuter, and the ace in the feminine. Accusative singular is always going to end, well, not always. In the case of the masculine and feminine, it's going to end in the nu. And the neuter is going to be the same in the nominative and the accusative, just like we see in those neuter second declension nouns. Looking at our plural definite articles, you'll notice that the genitive plural definite article is the same, tone, masculine, feminine, or neuter. Similarly with the dative, the iota appears, although it's not a subscript. You have tois, tais, tois, and then the accusative, tous, tas, ta. Again, notably, the neuter singular or the neuter plural nominative and accusative definite article is the same. So a couple of patterns there to pay attention to. It really is worth your time to invest in memorizing these definite articles. They'll help you. They'll pay off in the long term to have a clear sense of what these definite articles are. It will help in your reading of Greek when you're looking at nouns, at adjectives, and then much later when we get to participles. So that's an introduction to the forms of the definite article. We are now going to turn our attention to how the definite article works. So as N. Clayton Croy points out, the definite article in Greek is quite similar to the English definite article. We translate this as the. The main difference that Greek tends to include the definite article more often. So where will you see the definite article when you're reading in your Greek New Testament? First, sometimes, often, but not always, proper names include a definite article. You see this in the Gospels quite a bit. Jesus said to him, kai lege auto ha Jesus. So our subject is Jesus. He's the one who's doing the speaking here, speaking to in this case, in Matthew 8, 1 through 4, the Roman official's son, or to the Roman official about his sick son. Jesus says to him, Jesus is the subject of this verb. And what's really helpful about this definite article is otherwise, Jesus, we might not know if that's the subject or the direct object of the speech. But in this case, because it's definite, because it's ha Jesus, we know Jesus is the subject of our verb. Matthew 17:4, ha Petros epen to Jesu, Peter said to Jesus. So in this case, again, we see Petros has, both Petros and Jesus both have these definite articles telling us Petros, Peter, is our subject of the verb here, and that Jesus is our direct object, indirect object, because that's a dative. So this is the indirect object. Peter speaks to Jesus. We don't know what, in this particular instance, what Peter is saying, because we've cut off the rest of the sentence. So proper names often, but not always, include the definite article. Abstract and monadic nouns. So the kingdom of God. So the kingdom, great. Whose kingdom is it? It's God's kingdom. But we don't say the kingdom of the God. We say it's the kingdom of God. Similarly, the word of truth. We could translate this, the word of the truth, but in this abstract sense of truth as this concept, we don't say word of the truth, we just say the word of truth. So that's our introduction to the definite articles in these various forms. It's going to specify which person we're talking about, and here in a moment we're going to see how the definite article is really important, not only for identifying the case, number, and gender of nouns, but it's also really important for our adjectives. What is an adjective? Adjective is a word that describes or categorizes a noun. Typically, English places the adjective immediately before the noun it modifies. So, for example, I could say, the good man ran. And in this case, good, our adjective, is modifying man, and so it's placed immediately before it. Similarly, the wise woman speaks truth. So in this case, wise is modifying, it's describing our noun, in this case, the subject, the woman who speaks. The holy people follow God. Again, holy, our adjective, is describing these people. Which kind of people are they? They're holy people. The evil man destroys. So again, in this case, what we have is the adjective evil modifying man. Adjectives, just like definite articles, will always agree with the noun they modify in case, number, and gender. They will always agree in case, number, and gender. So adjectives and definite articles are worth knowing their case, number, and gender. In most cases, there are 3 termination adjectives, meaning that they take different suffixes corresponding to each gender, masculine, feminine, and neuter endings. So let's look at a couple of examples of these to begin with. So a good example of a 3 termination adjective is agathos, the word translated good. So you can describe, if you want to describe a good man, it would be agathos in the masculine. If you want to describe a good church, because the word church, ecclesia, is feminine, you would use agathe, the feminine adjective. If you want to describe a good child, because child is teknon is neuter, you would say ta agathon teknon, the good child. Now again, these genders of these nouns is not necessarily related to the gender, the biological gender of the noun itself, but whatever noun is being modified, is being described by the adjective, the noun will always agree with the adjective in case, number, and gender. So you can look through the list, and you can see why as you look through this list, wow, knowing the definite article actually is quite helpful for thinking about how these adjectives actually work. And oh, by the way, I've already learned these endings when I learned the second declension.